we did put a recipe in your folder for a baked goat cheese. Now, not everyone likes goat cheese. So we do have goat cheese here, but I wanted to show you some different options for that. So you can slice up goat cheese, which gives you a nice tart taste, but you can also, if you're more of a fan of feta, you can get a low moisture feta. The main thing you want to keep in mind when you do feta for the baked feta is you can actually do this in a pan as well. So this does not have to be something that you bake. We can actually pan fry this in a little bit of butter or a light oil. And if you're going to do that, it's really important that you get the low moisture, because otherwise it's going to melt on you before you actually get it cooked through. We're going to take our goat cheese first, and I'm going to show you the difference. So this low moisture feta, you will see, kind of comes out in a block, which is exactly what we want. And we're going to take that, and we're going to slice it down just a little here, because I want it thinner than it is. Okay. So we're going to slice it in half. And then we're going to cut it into some squares. You can be fancy and cut it into circles, whatever makes you happy. But we're going to cut this one into squares. And then we would actually marinate this overnight with a little bit of fresh thyme and then we would bread it. So we did not marinate this overnight, and it's a little sticky here. But we're going to do kind of a version of this. So you would take this, and you would put some thyme right over the top of it, and you're going to cover it, give it a little bit of marinade overnight. Bread it, and then you would put it in the oven and bake it. Now, I often make this using, instead of goat cheese, we're actually going to do goat cheese without baking it on your salads right now. If you don't want goat cheese, just let us know. But we can actually put a little bit of just the fresh goat cheese on here without baking it right now. But if you were going to do this feta, and I'll actually see if we can fry some up real quick. What you would do is take a little bit of your Parmesan and a little bit of breadcrumbs, and we're going to dip it in there. So we're going to take our Parmesan cheese. We've got some breadcrumbs over here, and then we're literally going to pan fry it just a little bit. What was that? We're going to give this a little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper. You don't want too much salt in this, because feta is a salty cheese, and so is your Parmesan. So keep that in mind whenever you're doing this. And then you're going to season this however you'd like. We're going to give it a little bit of oregano, not too much, a little bit of basil, and then we're going to mix this around. So we do have a more specific recipe in there, but I just want to show you how I usually make this pan-fried feta, which is one of my favorite things to make. So we're going to actually take this. See, it's really very firm. So you can actually use a similar recipe, and we're going to kind of press this in here, because we want to really get that Parmesan on there and get it pressed into the cheese. Because this is low moisture, it's not going to stick very well. So keep that in mind. And we don't want to do a lot of extra to it. So you can bake this or you can fry it. We're going to fry it mainly for speed today. A little tip, we're going to try this fresh. If you want to make it a little easier on yourself, you can put this in the refrigerator or even the freezer for a few minutes. That will keep it from melting very fast. But this is just kind of a fun recipe I like to make at home. And once you've had it, and you really get a sense of how it's going to work with something, you can make it with almost anything. You can dip it in a marinara. You could just have it on a salad. There are lots of different ways that you can do this. Like I said, you kind of have to press it in there. So so that you get that coating.
Is that why you want to marinate it overnight usually?
It kind of sticks, yeah. But it is really important that you get a low moisture, because otherwise it's just gonna melt right into there, and you won't really get that square of cheese. But also you run the risk of it kind of falling apart a little bit too. So
Looks like a mozzarella stick.
it does. It
Little
kind of
bit.
tastes like that too. It's really good. It's like a salty little square that's kind of fun on a salad. And you're not going to go too long on here. And like I said, you don't want to put too much butter. If you let it go too long, it will melt. And then you'll kind of lose the whole touch of it. Like I said, don't let them, you want them to kind of brown. You don't want them to go too long, because then you'll see they'll kind of just melt. I'm going to show you what happens if you let it go a little too long. You'll see your cheese just kind of starts to melt into there. That's okay. It's still going to taste wonderful. Okay. So one thing I wanted to just end this with is we talk a lot about different people who are famous in food. But I got to tell you, in my life, the most famous people in food are my family. I actually went to culinary school the same year that my grandmother passed away, and it was really deeply personal to me. I think for everyone, cooking is something, you either love it or you hate it. My husband loves it, I love it. But what inspired me to go to culinary school was, it was something I wanted to do for a long time, and I wanted to do it, and then I went and I had a career in business for a while, and I came back to it and I said, I really want to do this. So what inspired me to do that was everything about growing up was me standing behind one of my grandmother's cooking. And I'd love to, in a moment, hear your stories. But as we were talking about this program, we talked about how food was just such a big part of your life growing up, right? And a big part of family. Some people will say to you that food is fuel and it's only fuel. And I have to say, I really disagree with that. Food is very social. And food is a part of our culture. It's a part of our being. It's a part of our families. And I brought some ingredients to a recipe that I had a grandmother who was an amazing baker. She made the most beautiful pies. And I still remember sitting next to the oven and watching her make pies at 5 o'clock in the morning when everyone else was still asleep. And my other grandmother was one of those people who, she made wonderful dishes, but some of my favorites are some of her simplest dishes. But I do remember her hand whipping divinity, and if you don't know what kind of candy that is, it's really a very finicky candy. It's one that you actually have to whip. Most people do it on a machine. She hand whipped it, and she would be sitting there at her table hand whipping the divinity every Christmas. And but when I was growing up, both my parents worked, and she was almost like a second mother to us. So we had one dish that was really, it's funny, if I called my brother right now or I called my sister, they would tell you that they always have the ingredients to this dish in their cabinet. And it's not complex, but it's something that always kind of brings us back to home. It was something she made for us all the time. And the simplest ingredients, it is tomatoes and green chilies. And I'm going to tell you why I'm telling you about this recipe in just a moment. Chicken broth. There's actually a really specific kind of noodles, which I can't get up here. They come in a yellow box with red writing, and I can never find them. But this and some fresh parsley, a capful of oil, and you just simmer it all together. It's really simple. Just chicken broth, tomatoes and green chilies, fresh parsley, and a little bit of oil. But that has become the base of a lot of soup dishes for me. And it's something that it doesn't matter how old you get, there are moments where you feel homesick. And this is something that will bring me back. When I was in college, I often made this soup. And we always laughed because we would say, so what do we call this soup? And she would say, hot soup. She's hot soup. That's it. It's a little spicy. We always ate it hot. And I asked her one time, I was always in the kitchen with her, and I asked her, I was like, so how did you come up with this soup? But we would ask for it all the time. We would come home and say, can you make a soup? And she said it was literally what she had in the cabinet. And sometimes those are the dishes that really stick with you, right? It was just something she had in the cabinet, and she put it together. And don't get me wrong, I like I said, I remember her making hand whipping candy, and her roast with egg noodles is my favorite dish. I will still make that quite often. But these are really simple ingredients that when I'm sick, I make this soup. It just brings me back to home. It makes me feel good. When I'm looking for something fast, I've added things to it. I've added spinach to it. I've added vegetables. I've added chicken. But the simple base of it was just basically these 3 ingredients. And I think that really comes back to sometimes the most influential women in cooking for you are your mother or your grandmother or your aunts or cousins or whatever. And I would love to hear your stories of really important recipes to you. But so I always find for me, the most influential recipes are the ones that we made all the time. And we think about, there are Thanksgiving recipes and things that were special, but there were always just these daily recipes that are, near and dear to us. So I'm going to kind of open it up to you guys. Those are all the recipes I have today. I might make a little bit of the soup real quick. It's real fast, but we're done. And thank you so much for coming. But I really want to open it up and let you talk about your people who really mean a lot to you, because I want us to really acknowledge that those are important pieces to who we are as we move through life. And find your thing. Find your recipe that really brings you back to home, because I promise you're going to need that someday. So that's it. Thanks.
Thank you. Yay.